Right now, you're carrying a device that can send a message across the entire planet in less than a second. Every single day, invisible signals surround you constantly. Wi-Fi, radio waves, satellite data, filling the air without you ever noticing. It's just background noise now. We've gotten used to it. But in the summer of 1977, a radio telescope pointed at deep space picked up a signal that broke through that noise for exactly 72 seconds. And to this day, nobody can fully explain where it came from. It has never repeated, not once, not in nearly 50 years of searching. So what really happened that night? Let's go back to the beginning. In the mid-1970s, researchers at Ohio State University operated a large radio telescope nicknamed Big Ear. Its mission was ambitious for its time. Scan the sky continuously, searching for unusual radioactivity as part of a broader effort to detect signals that might indicate intelligent life somewhere beyond Earth. Most nights produce nothing remarkable. Space is loud with natural radio noise. Stars, gas clouds, distant galaxies constantly emitting faint signals. Almost none of it means anything extraordinary. On August 15, 1977, the telescope was aimed toward a region of sky near the constellation Sagittarius. Like every other night, its readings were recorded onto paper printouts, long columns of numbers and letters representing signal strength over time. Nobody was watching it live. The data simply piled up, waiting to be reviewed. A few days later, an astronomer named Jerry Amon sat down with a stack of these printouts, scanning line by line for anything out of place. Then he found it. One sequence of characters jumped off the page immediately. 6 EQU J 5. To most people, that string means absolutely nothing. But to a radio astronomer, it told a very specific story. Each character represented signal intensity on a scale, and this particular reading was nearly 30 times stronger than the background noise recorded that same night. Amon was so startled that he grabbed a red pen, circled the sequence, and wrote a single word beside it. Wow, that's the strange part. He wasn't exaggerating for dramatic effect. He was reacting exactly the way any trained scientist would to something completely unexpected suddenly appearing in the data. The signal became known as the wow signal, and it quickly turned into one of the most debated events in the history of radio astronomy. Here's where it gets more interesting. The signal was narrowband, meaning it was concentrated tightly around one specific frequency, close to 1,420 megahertz. That particular frequency corresponds to hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. For years before this event, some scientists had theorized that if another civilization somewhere in the galaxy wanted to send a signal intended to be noticed, that exact frequency would make logical sense. Any species advanced enough to build radio telescopes would likely already understand its significance, since hydrogen is essentially a universal constant. Except here's the part that changes everything. Despite pointing telescopes back at that exact patch of sky again and again over the following decades, nobody has ever detected the signal a second time. Not from that location. Not at that frequency. Not with that intensity. Nothing. Think about that. A signal appears once, briefly matches criteria scientists associate with a deliberate, intelligent transmission, and then vanishes completely, as if it were never meant to be caught twice. Naturally, this uncertainty led to decades of competing theories, each trying to explain what actually happened that night. Some researchers proposed a natural astronomical explanation. Perhaps it was a rare stellar flare, an unusual burst of energy from a distant star. Or perhaps it was a reflection of ordinary Earth-based radio transmissions, bouncing off space debris or a passing comet. In fact, in 2017, one scientist suggested that hydrogen gas surrounding two comets that hadn't even been discovered yet back in 1977, may have drifted through that region of sky and produced a signal resembling what Big Ear detected. For a while, it seemed like this idea might finally close the case. But here's the strange part. Other astronomers pushed back almost immediately. The The comet explanation didn't cleanly match several of the signal's specific characteristics, and follow-up observations failed to reproduce anything similar under the same conditions. So the comet theory remains just one possible explanation among several, plausible on paper, but never actually confirmed. Other researchers proposed simpler, more down-to-earth explanations too. A satellite briefly crossing the telescope's narrow field of view, a rare and unrepeated equipment malfunction, an unidentified source of terrestrial interference, something ordinary here on Earth, accidentally mimicking a cosmic signal. Each of these ideas is scientifically reasonable on its own. None of them has ever been proven. Then something worth considering shifts the whole picture. The Big Ear telescope could only observe a narrow strip of sky at any given moment, simply because of how it was physically constructed. As Earth rotated beneath the stars, the signal passed briefly through that narrow field of view and then was gone, which is exactly why it only lasted 72 seconds. If the signal truly came from somewhere beyond our solar system, and if its source only transmitted for a short window of time, the odds of catching it at all become remarkably small. The odds of catching it twice, using that same limited equipment, become smaller still. That's the real mystery here. Not that the universe is mostly silent, but that for just over a minute, on one ordinary summer night in 1977, it may not have been. Scientists have continued revisiting this case, using far more advanced instruments. Newer radio telescopes, with much greater sensitivity than Big Ear ever had, have scanned that same region of sky multiple times over the following decades, hoping to catch even a faint echo of whatever caused the original reading. So far, every one of those searches has come back empty, and that absence of evidence is itself part of what keeps this story alive. If it were easy to explain, the conversation would have ended decades ago. So here's the full picture. In 1977, a telescope built specifically to search the sky for something unusual recorded a signal stronger and stranger than anything else detected that night. It aligned closely with a frequency long associated with the search for intelligent transmissions. It has never been explained with full scientific certainty, and despite decades of searching with better technology, it has never appeared again in quite the same way. Researchers have proposed several natural explanations over the years: comets, satellites, equipment error among them, but none of them have been definitively confirmed. And that unresolved space between competing possible answers is exactly why the WOW signal still gets discussed nearly 50 years later, long after most single-night anomalies would have been forgotten. It doesn't prove anything on its own. It doesn't confirm we're alone, and it doesn't confirm we're not. What it does is remind us how much of the universe remains genuinely unexplored, and how a single unexplained moment, recorded almost by accident on a piece of paper, can outlast generations of proposed explanations. Maybe someday, a second signal will finally settle the question for good. Or maybe some mysteries were only ever meant to happen once, brief and unrepeatable by design. Either way, it's worth sitting with the fact that in a universe filled with billions of stars, one unexplained minute was enough to capture human curiosity for almost half a century, and counting. If you enjoy exploring the world's greatest mysteries, consider subscribing for more.